All right, fantastic. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Land Camels Investor Webinar. I'm Robin Holt from Jigsaw Agency. I've had the pleasure of working with Paul and the team at Land Camels on their upcoming equity crowdfunding round. And I'm joined here by Paul, the founder, who's going to give us a really good deep dive into the history of the company, the enormous growth they've been having in recent years, and then tell you all about what this capital raise is for. So before we dive into everything quickly, Paul, I'd love to hand over quickly to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, guys, Paul Martin, CEO and founder of Land Camels. So would you like me to start sharing now, Robin?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Let's go for it.
Okay, so we'll go straight into our presentation here today. So welcome, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to be able to offer you the world's first opportunity in functional camel dairy. So also like to, it's an interesting day of the year where we've Ramadan starting today. We've also everyone coming off Chinese New Year and Lent starting as well. So it's a great day to have you all here. Thanks also for the great questions. So I've taken those on board that you put in with your expression of interest, and I'll try and answer them as we go through the slides today, and then we'll have another session at the end. So we'll hopefully cover off on most of those. So looking at, I suppose, the origin and turning point of camels, a lot of our business, a lot of people don't know the history of camels in Australia. So they were brought here. We have the largest disease-free population of camels in the world. A lot of people don't know they were brought here in the 1800s, basically incentivised by, I suppose, pastoralists up in Western New South Wales, Queensland, to try and get their products to market. So people came here, went out and settled, and the Transporters Union really, because the early transport was horses and wagons and also bullock teams. And of course the challenge was by about the 1830s to 50s, the country, the landscape really dried out. So the impact of sheep on the Australian landscape, it started to get really dry. They weren't really efficient because there's sometimes the year that horses just couldn't go out there, and then camels started to become the solution to those sort of transport issues. But of course, with that became the clash with the Transporters Union, which then led up to basically the 1930s, where camels were then deemed to be not needed anymore, and it was passed through Parliament to declare them a pest, and they were all to be shot. So the issue with camels is they live for up to 50 years, and their camel ears full, and they're pets, they're part of the family, and basically they were just let go in the wild. So that was the catalyst really from the 1930s onwards that we've ended up with this feral population of camels. So, and it only really becomes a problem every time it sort of dries out and camels start looking for water. They start to come into people's areas and dig up water points and stuff. So oddly enough, they're the only animal alive at that time, which, why the penny hasn't dropped, again, why we aren't utilising camels more. So 10 years ago, we were looking more at the gut health opportunity with milk as for a dairy alternative. So it's the only mammal milk on the planet that people with dairy allergies can have. So we've started years ago. It was sort of used for, it was about $50 a litre for a litre of milk in Sydney. So we've spent 10 years now scaling the operation where we've got 40,000 litres of milk coming out a year in the Australian market, and this opportunity to go into the US market and also the rapid expansion of the China market for powder is really going to be the game changer for to get us up to that global scale that we're looking for. So that'll really be the game changer for camels. So I'd like to slip on a commercial validation. So one of the, I suppose, the questions, it's what sets Land Camels apart from everyone else. I mean, this is just a few of the numbers, like 128% of revenue from powder in the last 2 years, 120% milk from milk, but 76% revenue growth in the last 12 months of powder. So a lot of this is coming out of the Asian market. So very There's a lot of stuff happening over in China with the stabilisation of their population and looking for alternatives for baby formula and things like that. So, we've also had our cheese going into the US for the last 5 years, and our business is set up. We're 45 minutes from Brisbane, hour and a half, hour and 15 from the Gold Coast. So, that sort of where our 70,000 annual visitors are coming from now to come to the farm. And we've even recently had people coming from the States where it was the reason they came to Brisbane to come and see this camel farm. So the momentum has really started to lift. And I mean, the product, I suppose, 100 industry awards for our milk, our cheese, our gelato. We rate number one on TripAdvisor for the last 3 or 4 years as well. So, there's a lot of things happening in this space. Plus, we're in the scenic rim, which is a very highly promoted area for paddock to plate food. So we're situated really well for educating this market of why you should have camel milk. So the other, I suppose, the reason we've been successful in setting Summerland Camels up as being the bridge basically between feral camels and that $900 billion health market that's growing, with gut health and all the rest of it. So 10 years ago, there was no businesses looking at, so we've become the platform, I suppose, that takes feral camels and domesticates them and for milk and meat. So it's now possible for multiple businesses, like people wanting baby formula and nutraceuticals that want to create other products. They now actually can, get milk and powder, from a business like us. So that didn't exist 10 years ago. So, using tourism as certainly, growing our base. We weren't a hugely funded operation at the start, so we've sort of tried to organically educate the market through, I suppose, the interest in camels. So many people, you don't have to now go to Ayers Rock to ride a camel. You can come 45 minutes out of Brisbane and, where it's all here. So it brings me, so our business sort of model, how we operate. So again, we talk about the engine, which is the business that generates milk and powder. So, how efficient can we make that? Is that, that's what we've set about to do, our, better genetics. And then from that milk and powder, we can then value add. So we've got your skincare products, meat products, and then that's built, the brand we've built and cash flow with using agri-tourism. So, that's basically covers our, gives us a bit of stability around our revenue, and it's probably why Summerland Camels has been able to survive where other camel dairies just haven't really lasted in the market, just because they, especially with COVID and the dips in that. So, that's sort of set us apart from everyone else. I suppose a question we can sign off on here is, a lot of people ask about, are we paying dividends? So, we are a growth company and we are trying to reinvest our revenue basically to build the company up and build our revenue streams up so we can sort of, it benefits all shareholders. A lot of other question is, what exactly do I own? So by investing, you're actually getting ordinary shares. They'll be valued at 32 cents a share, basically based on an agricultural valuation of about 4 to 6 times revenue. So the milk powder and the US milk will increase that revenue. So that's sort of what we've been working on. So the development of products like infant formula will then increase the valuation model. So, being an ag valuation of 4 to 6, if you can go to, once you get a baby formula or nutraceuticals, you're looking at more 16 to 20 times revenue. So that's sort of how we'll move the company forward. And this is where we'll probably look at, a float or a new valuation, coming in at that time of the market. So the goal of this raise is to basically fast track and unlock these new revenue streams. So, we've done raises in the past, which was to basically pull our focus onto promoting milk and powder. And I think we're seeing the benefits of that now, where all of a sudden these opportunities where they're coming to us going, well, we need to get milk over into the States. So, and they're coming to us to do it. So that investment has been, money well spent. And of course, elephant in the room is always, what's my return on investment? Well, for all shareholders, the sort of the best short-term advantage is to take part in our investor product discount. So we'll have investor rewards there for all the different levels of investors. So if you're a user of our product, you can sort of get up to a 30% discount on products. So that's a big help. Longer term, obviously we're trying to increase the revenue base, increase that valuation multiple. So, that'll give all sort of shareholders a lift in their share. So, that's basically what we're looking to do. So with that, it'll also, give a potential exit strategy as we grow to the next stage. The next raise is probably, this will be potentially our last crowdfund, because as we open up these revenue streams, it'll open up other forms of investment capital as well. So, and that will give our sort of current investors an exit strategy if they want. So that's our plan going forward. So another questions around global demand. I mean, we also someone asked about would we only focus on export markets? Well, certainly not. The headwinds or the tailwinds for the camel industry is this functional nutrition in replacing plant-based trends. So it's the only mammal milk that people with dairy allergies can have. And there's this massive gut health, is driving that dairy alternative. So, and I think the other one there is sustainability matters around camels winning in sort of Arab climates. So, as I say, when you look at the culling programs that are going on in Australia, there are no other animals around when they're culling camels. So it's nearly a little bit of madness to think this is an animal that can out-survive everything else, and yet we're getting rid of it to sort of make room for another introduced species that isn't adaptable. So we'll certainly be focused on, we've got 40,000 litres going into the Australian market. We're on track to probably get 60,000 litres into this market without the US market on top of that. So we've spent, as you said, 10 years educating the market, and we're benefiting on that sort of compounding effect of that education. The company will also become probably a buyout target for larger corporations wanting to tick that sort of sustainability target. So, there's a lot of companies trying to, tick those boxes, and we have a great story of repurposing camels from the wild, creating retail products that tick all the sustainability and environmental targets, and with an animal that's the most environmentally adaptable on the planet. So, there's a very good story there that people can, bigger corporations, can sort of, I suppose, tap into if they want to decide to feel good about what they're doing at night. So, next we look at sort of, I suppose, competitive moat. How are we sort of protected from others as well? So again, a lot of those things on that list. So another question that comes up is, why haven't we done it by now? So why haven't we gone over to the US? Again, we've sort of built the foundations. The US market has matched our growth in the rise in the interest of camel milk. So over the past 10 years, their demand is going through the roof now as well. So their challenge is that they can't expand. So they haven't got the large feral herd to tap into now to increase, I suppose, the supply on the supply side. So Australia is basically the only country that is prepared and can meet the import standards of fresh milk into the US. So, and then I suppose the assets that we have over here in that wild camel supply, we have some Land Camels, we have our operating facility going at the moment. We have retail products, we have tourism revenue, we grow our own feed on the farm. So we're certainly beyond concept. So for any competitors to come in, they've got to try and catch up to that. So we're over nearly 3 million in revenue, and our genetics that we've been working on for the last 10 years of marking sort of milk yield. So camels can yield anything from a litre a day to 13 litres a day coming out of the wild. So, we've been identifying those high yielders, which helps with your cost of production and all the rest of it. So, which is, majorly important for a business like us. So, leads me to product development. So where are we going with our products from here? So everyone likes to talk about baby formula. It's sort of, it's definitely on the radar. It comes with a lot of compliance and sort of partnering. The smart thing to do is probably partnering with someone on that venture and getting camel milk into that space. So, but certainly China's population is, is starting to stabilise, and there's a big focus now on maintaining that increased need for baby formula because there's a lot of dairy intolerance in that market. So it, with a premium product from Australia, it certainly ticks that box. So, but better options for revenue are sort of what's on the list, I suppose. Adult nutrition powders, gut health, immunity. In China, something we're developing at the moment is a milk lolly. So A2 milk lollies are popping off over there. So it's a big thing over there. So we're actually developing a camel milk one for people with dairy allergies. But again, assistance with gut health. We're adding Manuka honey to that. So that's the first one that we're taking over to Singapore at the end of the month. To look at going into shops over there. So it's a great product for e-commerce. So, we're also doing a camel milk latte for Middle Eastern markets. So they've been asking for, can we do a milk coffee out of camel milk? So you've seen those sachet products on the market these days. So we've got one of those getting made at the moment. And the lollies, I suppose, if you remember, I think in our day, it was the goaties and the dextrose lollies and things like that. So that was certainly things that were, we're sort of used to having before. So I think the other one, so we've got baby formula down there, and pet nutrition is another big one. So for the milk, there's a big market there in there as well. So skincare I didn't put up there, but it's another one where we're constantly working on and sort of looking at a high-end product to go into the Middle East, particularly Dubai. So we do send a bit of skincare over to some of the bathhouses over there already. So it's becoming quite a popular thing. So that gives you an idea of where we're going, with our product development. So this raise now, so it sort of comes to answers the questions of what our plan is. I suppose the capital raised here is basically going to build a new dairy and upgrade our milking, pasteurising and bottling facilities. So we have all that at the moment, but to go into the US, you have to have a closed-in system where you can't hand bottle. It's got to be all a closed-in system. So we will be using a manufacturer's grant that is out as well. So that's focused purely on upgrading equipment. So we'll try and use some of the raise towards that. So once that equipment is installed, we'll be basically getting the guys out to do a compliance on the dairy, get FDA approval for that. And then it's basically, it'll start with a couple of pallets by air, and then we'll be, once they get through that product, it's going over by container. So, and that'll basically, will just open up so many things that we can go straight into there with a frozen milk. So the reason frozen milk works with camel milk is it's naturally homogenized. The fat doesn't float to the top like a cow's milk, so it's very easy to freeze at the point of pasteurization and sort of get a very good and defrost and refresh it, and it's as good as when you put it down. So a little bit different to cow's milk, so it can still respond, I suppose, the same way as fresh milk after being frozen. So that's sort of a big plus. So So that sort of sums up the raise now. I think we go on to our questions. These are sort of a list of the questions that I had that I think we've sort of covered off on in there. So you have a look at those, but we can probably jump out and now, Robin, and go to a question slide. And I have a group of questions here I can go through first if you like.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. It's so great to hear so much detail and obviously hear all about the expansion of the overseas market and how much of an opportunity the US market in particular is. I know that we have the open Q&A, and so I'd really encourage all the attendees here to use the Q&A box to ask any other follow-up questions and really talk so we can really get into detail on how you're going to be able to grow with this capital raise, what you're going to use that capital for in particular, and also just highlight one piece which I forgot to mention before, that for almost everybody who is here, I can imagine a lot of you have expressed interest to invest, and we've been really, really encouraged by the expression of interest numbers. And the private offer is opening next Thursday on the 26th. So we're really thrilled to be sitting down and going through this now and really just giving everybody the opportunity to have their burning questions answered.
Thanks, Robin. And I think I've got why people are putting their questions in. I think another one was asked is, can we add shares from a previous raise? So yes, you can. If you're aware of the rules around crowdfunding, is basically you can after $10,000 you need to have a signed document from your accountant. Because we raised within 12 months of our last raise, anyone who invested in the last one, you can still invest up to 10 with the combined totals. After that, you'll have to get a signed off permission from your accountant. So, but if you were in the first raise a few years ago, then you can still invest up to 10,000 this raise without triggering that document. So that document most people should have as well. So if you need it. So the other big question is, what are our current biggest on-the-ground issues today? Interesting question. So definitely the fluctuating feed costs and any energy costs, or increased energy costs, I suppose, for our business. We're going to address energy costs with this raise, with going off-grid solar. So there's some great, incentives to go off-grid, and we're sort of working with a company that's at the moment to make sure that any future roof developments are done with solar in mind. So we can go. That'll help us a lot with going to things like powdering and putting our own powdering facility in, because that energy cost is the biggest killer. So, but as far as commodities go, I think as solar starts to gets adapted more in agriculture, it'll help with, because irrigation and electricity is the biggest effect that people have on producing any food and commodities in this country. So that's been another question that people had. And then I think when will the investment opportunity go live? So I think Robin just sort of touched on that. So if you've expressed interest, there is a window between the 26th of February and the 3rd of March where basically anyone that will get first go at investing. So if we happen to hit our 1.5 target in that window, then it won't go to the public. But after that, it'll open up, and you've got till around the 17th of March if it continues. So that's when the close will happen, and then you'll be issued shares, and it'll come from a platform like Cake. So they manage the share portfolio. So very important to go on there and engage with that, because that's also where we put all our updated reports for the company on there. So it's just, if you engage with that company, then you'll get emails from them on our updated reports, quarterly reports for the company as well. So over to you, Robin.
Fantastic. You're covering off all the details that I usually do. So thanks very much, Paul. We've just got a question here quickly from Mohammed. Have we initiated communication with US counterparts for export? I'd love to dive into this question and this topic and ask a few follow-up questions, actually.
Yeah, so thanks for your question. So we've actually got an order for it's 30 to 60,000 litres for year one. So it will probably take us, 6 to 12 months to get through I suppose, the building of the new dairy. There's parts that we can upgrade and things like that, but then getting them out here and then approving it and signing off on it. So we've actually sending powder into that market now. So powder goes in, it falls under a different category, as I said, similar to our cheese. So we can send powder there. We're starting to open up those so they can give powder to those channels now. And then, so when the frozen milk starts to come over there, they'll actually be ready to roll.
Yeah, that's great. And I think for the US market, obviously you've got this order, and then you're building that facility out. Once that happens, are you going to go more so down the distribution through wholesale network routes, for selling, your camel milk, also your powder? Like, or do you believe that those wholesale distribution networks will be the most effective? Do you believe that it's going to be more effective to go down the D2C route? Obviously, in that you'll have to try and build out a brand and really try and have a bit more of a presence, but the margins will be better to do so. What do you think is the best approach right now for the business?
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty well from a margin point of view. We've always basically done the online sort of home delivery side of stuff, particularly around Australia. I think what the opportunity with the US coming on board, taking that big sum of milk every week, is then going to allow us the efficiencies on farm. So controlling our own production, it means you've got a few more levers. So to run more animals, to get the efficiency out of staff, to then start moving towards robotics in the dairy. So there's got to be a scale you get to before robotics makes sense, which post the US market that will happen. And then it also the putting spray drying capacity on farm. So we currently send milk from Queensland to Tasmania to powder. So just the investment in a spray drying facility on farm will covered off with solar energy is going to put us in ahead of the curve as far as a global competitor. So you can certainly buy powder cheaper in the world today, but again, it's not coming from Australia that has that sort of disease-free herd. So the benefits the flow-on benefits that happen with this US market around scale just opens up so many other opportunities, because then you've got margin to go into shop, where more people are going to know about it as well. So the US has their own distribution channels at the moment that they're using. So we'll sort of start with using those, and then being of that US accredited standard also gives us opportunity to go anywhere in the world as well. So Singapore is another big market for fresh milk, because we're only about a couple of hours from Singapore out of Brisbane. So I can get to Singapore quicker than I can get to Melbourne. So it's as we build that flow of milk, there's going to be a lot more opportunities to take it into other markets.
Yeah, great. And Helen here has asked, is there a minimum dollar amount for investment?
I think it's down at 250, I think, on the expression of interest.
Yep.
So and then check out the as I say, the investment opportunities for products and stuff like that. There's a scale there that you can get a higher percent discount on your products as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. And I think you've already covered that off. Rachel here has asked around the investors discounts. There will be some investor discounts on products at certain tiers. So reviewing the offer document when the offer goes open and when it's in that private window That will mean, everybody who's expressed interest to invest and then goes in gets early access, and they can see those investor rewards and get discounts alongside their shares as well. So fantastic. Thank you so much for covering that off. And then Jenny here has asked a few questions around key people in the organization, and how you plan to protect these key people in the organization. Maybe let's break down what the company structure looks like at this point in time, and how the day-to-day operations run.
Yeah, so that's what we've good question. So we basically have been setting up all our operational systems, and that's what we set out with that view in mind, that we wanted to set some Land Camels up so it was a repeatable business in another location. So part of our growth strategy is to take this site here to around we could milk 300 to 400 camels a day on this site. So at the moment we're milking around 80 to 100 at a time. So which is about our capacity. So once we get up to that 300 or 400, we're then at the point of triggering the next opportunity, which is to go west of here and basically set up a project that is full powder related. So it'll be just fully milking camels, 500 to 1,000 camels milking into powder. And the reason I say go west is getting where the logistics are a little bit better, getting away from the coastal region, which is not ideal for camels. It's great for getting tourists on the weekend, but it's not the best climate for camels. So we've all set up our systems in place so that basically there's no one that's not replaceable in that. So it's actually a model that someone can take, because we wanted to show people that if this was doable. It was it was said, oh, we can't domesticate camels, you can't turn it into a dairy industry. Well, we've proved that wrong, and so the aim was to show people that it's a repeatable. So I've got we've got a team that basically milks the camels each day. We've got a team that trains the camels. And they basically interchange as well for the size of the business at the moment, basically because so the camels will come in from out west. We'll actually have people that handle them when they're in that fresh state. They'll go then get trained to go in the dairy. And then that training in the dairy sort of continues on. We've got a processing team on farm, so it's a couple of people. So you'll see in the IM when it comes out, it'll actually have all the people that are in the system. And then we've got our sort of sales and tourism side. So the cafes on the farm, so people are coming to the farm every day, and that's a lot of the products that are sold every day go to our cafe. So we manage those systems as if we're sending it to another shop. So it's basically it's another outlet for us. So we've certainly, as we scale up, it always puts pressure on those systems and make sure we're getting better at what we do. So and certainly going online now to Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, and Brisbane. So we have a home delivery system there, which is again as it scales up, we're constantly meeting those challenges. So we've got the team there sort of listed. So and it's all about, we've set it up in mind to replicate. So it's all documented and with those systems in place. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And Jenny here has asked around the financials and cash flow being provided in the offer document. The financials, basically the financial statements that you'll see in the offer document will be your P&L, cash flow statement, and balance sheet, as well as changes in equity statement. These have to be provided for the last financial year. But there will be management commentary on this, and Paul, I'm sure you'll probably want to add a few details around this question.
Yeah. So. It'll all be there. And again, the aim is to obviously increase our revenue streams, but also we're trying to manage our costs as well. So it's one of the big things that with the challenges with a business like this that is linked to commodity markets and big user of electricity. So managing your cost base is very important. I suppose that's my background as a commodity producer. So, and then it's about, I suppose, like the last investment was into sales and salespeople. So, and that's flowing through now in that we've opened up those categories to market. So, there's and please, if most people have my details when the offer document comes out. If there's any other pertinent questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, fantastic. And another question here, just from Jenny, and for a lot of the questions and a lot of the topics that we have sort of covered off from internal questions coming through and also internal conversations, there is quite a lot that we can talk about in relation to the industry and the competition. But I'd really love to make sure that we cover off as many questions from you all here as possible. So please do use that Q&A feature to ask as many questions as you'd like about the upcoming offer. That is exactly what we're here for. But just in addition to that, Jenny here has asked, can you provide info on the UAE market and if there are sell-through arrangements with the US?
Are there sell-through arrangements with the US?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so as far as maybe we can sort of break down, because obviously the UAE market has a massive customer base of camel milk drinkers. There's a huge market over there. They do have local industry, of course, but maybe we can talk a little bit about the local industry there. We know that Australia has an advantage because it has a disease-free wild herd, and that is a huge plus. But these markets, they have been around there, in some respects, probably cottage industries, but at the same time, maybe we can talk a little bit about the market opportunity over there for yourself and for the business in comparison to the US market.
Yeah, so I think it's great. I mean, there's certainly some big dairies over there, sort of 800 milking camels, and they're pushing their product. They've got access to China, whereas currently we don't. So, there are a lot of our camel milk that's going into Asia is going through what they call the grey trade or on the internet and things like that. So, I think it's fantastic. In China now, there are full shops now on the street. Basically, you can go into that are all camel milk, and that's coming out of their own Bedouin communities of Mongolia plus Dubai, and I think this is fantastic. So the sooner we can get camel milk seen as a regular, stable, daily consumption item, the sooner. Australia only needs the top 5% or the top 1% in these countries as a clean green product. So what you'll see happen in these markets is everyone goes, we can get camel milk, we love the camel milk, it's awesome, but there will be a percentage of that market that will float to the top and go, well, we want the best. Where do we get the best? And look, ours may not taste any different to, I mean, in Dubai, they import all their food from Melbourne. Basically, it all comes from Australia. So, they might not be our camels, but they're getting our food. So, but they're limited to what commodities they can import as well. So, again, Australian camels have access to a lot of different foods over here. So we don't have a limit to our dairy industry, our feeds that we can feed. So I think the sooner these markets, now there's some challenges with UAE milk going into the States because it has been going in there, but it hasn't been going in as A-grade milk. So the issue they've been having is, well, we don't really want to stop it because there isn't an alternative. Once there is an alternative like Australian milk that fits A-grade standard, then it's going to put a lot of pressure on that milk that's leaking in from Dubai into the US. But again, I don't have any issue. The volumes we're talking about out of Australia, it's not going to be a mass commodity like cow's milk. It's going to be a product that people use for gut health. They use for kids that can't handle milk. It's going to be a premium product, and it's going to have that Australian-made brand on it. So I think you've got to have that confidence. So the speed to market is actually using that volume that other people have to get more people on it and get more people talking about it, because there'll always be enough people with the money that'll pay for the premium product that we'll have.
Oh no, of course, and everything you're talking about here is really uniquely setting up Australia and yourself to be in the right position, in the right place at the right time. Um, Given the health conscious focus, also things like allergies for infant milk formula presents a huge opportunity for camel milk being right there in that position to be able to take advantage of that. And you don't need to be trying to go toe to toe with cow's milk directly. There's an enormous market for that worldwide, globally. There's obviously a lot of businesses and countries that serve themselves, but with camel milk, it's different. It is niche, and it always is going to be treated as a niche product that is a bit more expensive. But if you can get there and get into those markets, and be in the position you're in 10 years after you started, you'll definitely find yourself to be able to take advantage of that customer base that's there. But as well as that, I think you know I would love to maybe break down a little bit of what you see outside of the US being your low-hanging fruit to export your milk powder into.
Yeah, so I think getting it's interesting. Asian markets go towards the powder.
Yeah,
Certainly the Middle Eastern markets go towards the milk. This is the sort of data we collect from the farm, just of
yeah,
the amount of people we come. But to get into China, we can't go in with 100% milk powder, but we can certainly go in with a lolly. So I didn't think 20 years ago I'd be talking about lollies, but the market, it's something people are familiar with. That Asian market are very conscious about what they give their children and what the kids have. To be able to, there's already, as I said, A2 milk lollies are popping off over there as a thing. You can buy goatees. They're a goat milk lolly. A camel milk lolly as a premium health product, I think has got a massive upside because of the ability to sell online. It fits all the e-commerce brands. It doesn't necessarily have to go on shelf. So I think it's a no-brainer. We've been working up till that on those adult type formulas. So a lot of people in the gym people that can't have, they want milk, but they can't because they've got dairy allergies. Well, to be able to have something that's also good for their gut. And, and a lot of that's sort of based around price point. So that'll all get fixed when we get volume there as well. So once we got volume in the market, then all these products where you see powders now, you can come in with a premium grade camel milk product, because I think most of those powders now are based on soy or almond milk and things like that. So you can sort of, as people get more educated about the environmental impact that these products are having, on our land and our use of water and all the rest of it, anything that uses water is going to come under a great lot of pressure. You've got an animal here that can go without water for 30 days producing a premium product. Not that our milking camels go without much, but you've got an animal here that's extremely efficient, can eat a low-cost food. It just ticks so many boxes with changing environmental conditions and all the rest of it. So I think it's a win-win across the board.
And just before we move on to the next question as well, I know A2 milk is different, but as you mentioned them there, they've had enormous amounts of growth, obviously going after a certain type of customer because it only contains that A2 type beta casein protein, making it easier to digest. But they've had enormous amounts of growth. What about A2 milk are you emulating as a business, and can you take as a reason to sort of say, actually, we can go after that market, or we can model this growth strategy?
Yeah, so it's interesting without delving too much into the A2 background, but some people can transition to A2 milk, but not everyone that has dairy allergies can have A2 milk. So we've got the rest. So there's people there that and it's very high in lactoferrin. So when you break down camel milk, they go, well, why would Somali or Middle Eastern communities use it as a gut health treatment? There had to be a reason behind it. When you start looking at it, it doesn't curdle when it hits your stomach. So that's different to A2 milk. A2 milk's going to react the same as milk in that it curdles. So camel milk will line the gut and bowel, so that'll help with gut inflammation and makes it easier to digest. So, very high in lactoferrin and vitamin C, which are two products that people put in most tablets when you're trying to get over a cold or whatever, and extremely high in iron. So the product itself, you can see why it was used as a naturopathic therapy for people, that were unwell in the stomach. So, and that's now, we've got Queensland Uni. When we started, didn't have anyone studying camel milk. They've got 7 master's students there now in Queensland Uni studying the benefits of camel milk and the different attributes of camel milk. So, the movement certainly started. The Melbourne University released that paper on, the benefits of the insulin absorption out of camel milk. Again, it's easier to absorb. Normal milk gets stirred up in the gut and you lose those benefits. So by actually lining your gut and bowel, any benefit that's in the milk is actually going to be absorbed. So, that's sort of, we're not really a competitor to A2 milk, but the people who are transitioning and thinking that that's a solution for them, and that's not, are going to end up basically in the camel milk space, or plant, their cheaper versions, of course, are the plant substitutes. But again, until people realise the actual true cost to the environment of those products, camel milk starts to stack up quite well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Some really, really valid points there made. And Andrew here has asked if I wanted to sell my shares at a later date, how might this work? So I think just, you know,
Yeah.
kicking this question off, these are illiquid shares, so you are purchasing shares directly in a private company. So there isn't an easy pathway and simple pathway to be able to then liquidate those shares, because you're not sort of purchasing at an IPO stage. So there are a few options which can be considered further down the line. Like Paul said, the business might decide to pay out dividends in the future, which will mean you might be able to get a return. As far as actually selling the shares at a later date is concerned, sometimes the business may seek a buyout, and so therefore there might be a liquidation event that might happen there. There can be a secondary share sale, which is a fairly lengthy process, which is a bit less common in this space. And there can, which I think Paul will probably point towards as the most likely option, be a pathway to an IPO in the future for the business, where that will give you an opportunity to sell those shares. But then again, it's none of this is certain. It's really important to just highlight that you're investing into an illiquid asset at this point in time. And so the company is using these funds to be able to go on and grow and take advantage of the US opportunity that it's got in front of it.
Yeah, Robin, I think that's pretty well sums it up. So, I mean, probably the only thing that will help is our pathway. As I said, we're raising money now to open up those revenue streams into the US, which will also increase the China powder revenues will increase. So that's our job as a company, is to increase those revenue streams. So then, the shares of the company's worth more, and then move it towards a nutraceutical company, which will help with our valuation model. So when a bigger player comes in to take this to 400 camels or whatever, that might be a trigger point where there's a liquidation event where they might want to go, well, okay, who wants out? So that's that'll be your first exit strategy. The second will be a float.
Yeah, no, great. No, fantastic. And a question here from Valentina. I'm new to investments. With the proposed investments, is there an opportunity for it to be converted into shares? So you're actually buying shares directly. These shares are ordinary shares with voting rights. Everybody gets the same class of share. There's nothing complicated. It's not what's a convertible note, where there isn't a proposed valuation in those shares that purchase is then converted into shares. You are directly buying shares in Summerland Camels, so it's all yeah, nice and simple. And these details are outlined in the offer document. You can go and review sections 3 and 4, which provide a bit more detail around the class of share and the terms of the offer as well. Just a question below here from Mohammed. Can you elaborate on the commitment from the US? Is this a hard commitment with a signed agreement? Is it from a retailer? Any commitments from the Asian market? I know we've covered quite a lot of detail on this, but
Yeah,
I'm sure
so
we can
I've got a
cover a bit
signed
more.
agreement from the US.
Yeah. For
So
the
we've got
60,000 liters.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the delivery date is the one that's open ended because it's obviously on us to try and get this approved in time. So
Yeah.
and that's all based on this raise. So there's no
Mm,
signed agreements out of Asia at the moment. I am dealing with
yeah.
multiple companies on it because that are as
Mm.
the rules change into China
Yep.
pretty well monthly. Uh,
Mm.
at the moment, it's a percentage of, like, we actually send the product over there. It's 10% camel milk, so that can
Yep.
get in. I think anything below 40% is it has access, which is why the
Mm.
lollies are an option, so they
Yep.
can get in through into China. But once it goes up
Mm.
above 40% camel milk powder, Australia's
Mm.
locked out at this point in time at the front
Yeah.
door anyway.
Yeah, great. And as far as the lollies are concerned, when do you believe that you'll have some sort of meaningful market insight data on these lollies to be able to then say, well, actually, we should really be directing quite a lot of our marketing spend to this because it's clear that we can really sell this product quite far and wide.
Yeah, so we'll have the product pretty well land here, hopefully in a few weeks' time. The
Great.
downside, if they're really good, I might eat them all before I get them to Singapore. So that's the big worry. So, but we're taking them straight over to.
Mm,
We've been
mm,
invited over to Singapore for camel milk products. So it was
mhm.
an invitation to Summerland Camels because they were interested in products we had. So the idea is to take that over there and see how that sits. That's into a shop shelf type of arrangement. So over there, so that'll be, I think that product's going to be key. I mean,
Mm.
obviously powder and all those other products that we're selling at the moment, we drive them on
Yeah.
e-commerce daily, so they will still be going out at hopefully increased levels from today. So
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. And Jenny here has asked, are you investing in long life packaging options?
yeah, so I suppose you're talking about sustainability packaging and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Certainly as we change our brands and things like that, change our packaging. It's one of the biggest challenges we have actually in a small business with small runs of things. It's packaging is probably adds to probably one of the biggest issues of a skincare brand. And it's one of the things of COVID. COVID, we were all glass jars. We had to go to plastic for a little while because there was no alternative. We're back to glass now after a couple of years. It's taken us to get back to sort of a reusable glass jar. So they're quite good and novel, but it's very hard to get. People want 20,000 units to do one SKU,
Yeah.
of packaging. So we're certainly
Yeah.
trying to work it in, and it's on our radar. But
Mm.
yes, where we can.
Yeah, great, great. And the last question which has come in, I think, is probably one of the best. As a shareholder, can I name a camel?
Certainly, certainly. We're running out of names. So with 400 camels here and 300 of them are named, yes, we definitely
Yeah.
need some new names. But you have to come with something more original than Humphrey. He's taken multiple times. So yes,
Of course,
you're
of
welcome.
course.
So
Um, And look, as we come to the end of the questions, I really want to thank everybody for the questions, and thank yourself, Paul, as well, for the really just in-depth detail on where the business is at right now. We do have a couple of minutes if anybody does have any other questions that they wanted to ask, and we can cover off. But Paul, I think what would be really good is to we've got a really good picture of the fact that you have done an awful lot as a business, but I know that over the 10 years, you really have diversified your revenue so significantly, and you've grown, you know, your powder and your fresh milk in, those percentages in revenue are quite significant considering the established business that's already in place. Why has it sort of, gotten to this point? Is it sort of the perfect timing in the market? Is it the fact that you've really just been able to uh, run the business, get it to a sustainable position, so then you can actually focus much more so on growth, which for this category is different to other categories. It's not just a massive market where you're just going for scale from day one. Maybe talk a little bit about the background of the business and how you have got here. So then we can just maybe end this by summarizing exactly where the investment opportunity lies, and what the next few years of the business can look like.
Yeah, so I think the one of the biggest challenges, I suppose, that the exciting challenge going into this project was to start an industry that didn't exist, I suppose, in
Mm,
Australia, and that took a lot. It took a lot for our early investors that came on board, with that vision
mm,
at the start, and bought into that vision of how we were going to get there 10 years ago. Where we were milking 10 head of camels, I think, back then, and we sort of fast tracked to today. So, there was, no one was Googling skin issues and
mm.
camel milk in the same,
Yeah.
tone. There was certainly a lot of milk being used in the sort of autistic children, mums with autistic babies looking for alternatives because it's non-inflammatory. It sort of helped. It had an effect, and there was a number of books written in the States on that, on the benefits for children in those issues. Eczema was another big one in the early days. So that's sort of where we started looking at a skincare brand following the same model that goat milk was went down with goat milk soap, and then now you go into a pharmacy and it's all goat milk products. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
started with using replicating that model. So we said, well, right, we've got a dairy model that works with cows. Let's see how we can make that fit a systemized camel milking model with all the idiosyncrasies of camels and their gestation period and all the rest of it. So we've worked through all of those challenges, and I suppose
Mm,
now
mm.
getting to the point where we're getting some significant scale. So, and over that time, the things that have happened, like COVID, has made people more interested in where their food's coming from. So there's been this swing around, which has made where we're located. We've got
Mm.
1,200 schools within an hour of the farm. With Brisbane, Gold Coast, Warwick, Toowoomba. We're right in the centre. We've got a Cunningham Highway, which basically is the feeder for all the southern markets to come out through Brisbane. So it's the location's perfect from an education point of view. We probably got lucky in picking the scenic rim, which happened to be also get themselves on the number in the top 10 places of the world to visit. Which sort of really spurred on the tourism side of things. So and then being able to use that as a capture point to then educate people, because so many people come out just to pat a camel and they go, oh, can I have it if I'm dairy intolerant? No, I'll have the ice cream. I'll have the cheese. I can have that again. They just it just grew from there. So the product
Mm.
development was more around, well, how many foods can we get in this cafe that people
Yeah.
with dairy intolerances can have? And then it was,
Yeah.
okay, let's showcase the meat. We've got
Mm,
that coming on. So that sort of it built out from there. And I think the exponential, I suppose, where people are coming back now, that, their parents told them about, grandparents told them about, we're sort of their kids are now coming from the school to do, agri projects and ag tech.
Yeah.
We're always moving towards ag tech. So, all these schools are looking at a place that they can actually show kids something, and we actually
Mm.
milk the camels, turn it into products, use the byproducts, fertilize the country with the other byproducts, and grow the
Yeah.
feed. So, we're certainly looking to make sure it's an agri tech and play in the future as well. So that's sort of where that's this hub, that can milk up to 400 camels. So, one of the growth where we're heading then is robotics, where we'll have robotic feeding of camels in sheds and things like that. So, that's
Yeah.
the next phase going forward. So, and seeing that development of milk powder, I mean, at the start, our milk powder was, not, we sort of had to work through how it dissolved and things like that. So right at the start, it wasn't as good as it is today. So we're starting to perfect the powdering of the camel milk, so people get that, because people want to put it in water and have it dissolve. Cow's milk has additives put in it, to emulsifiers and stuff added, so we don't have that at this point. So when we were kids, it used to just float on the top. When we used to out in the stations put powdered milk on something, it would just float, and you couldn't actually make it blend in at all. So,
Yeah.
they changed that over time. So we've gone through similar sort of growth points in our products, the same as cow's milk. So, I see seeing it now getting to becoming an ingredient. So a lot of our inquiries now are, I want camel milk powder to go in as an ingredient to something. So that was our
Yeah.
goal, was to make, get enough powder in the marketplace so people can go, right, we can now make a business off this because there's enough powder there to do it. So, we've achieved all those things. And I think, this US market now, on top of the growth in, as you saw the numbers in powder, are growing at the same rate. So, it's all about scale and then getting our costs down with powder, with electricity, I think is, that's another big change in the market. With I see some huge opportunities in agriculture with cheaper energy. I think that's where it opens up so many more opportunities for on-farm processing, or smaller type processing rather than big scale, because energy is the biggest killer with cold rooms and machines and things like that. So I think that's how the platform, it's all laid out in front of us, and these are I suppose how it's just sort of, I suppose it's not, we saw the opportunity 10 years ago, but we're starting to be able to get the volumes to deliver in those markets as well. And, same with skincare. It didn't, goat's milk soap, they didn't come out with a line of, a whole range of goat milk to start with. I think it nearly took them 20 years before they now own, a quarter of the shopping, a pharmacy is now goat milk products. To when I was a kid, they came out with a bar of soap, So, these things take time, and I think that's where tapping into the tourism revenue has been a massive, thing for us, because it's it's as problematic, I suppose, in its, affected by weather, a weekend's rained out, things like that. So, it's got its challenges, but we're there it just gives us that constant revenue coming in that a normal dairy would have when they sell their milk at the farm gate. Because we're value adding, we do need a constant revenue stream. So we're not selling the milk at farm gate, different to a cow dairy. So we're value adding it. It means our revenue is pushed out a little bit. So it does take some management of your cash flow, which is where that having that tourism balances that out for us now. So we would never set out to be a tourism business, but we didn't want to be a price taker at the farm gate either. So we had to sort of try and balance those two to get the opportunities that we got coming to us now.
Yeah, it's a brilliant summary of the business and all the opportunities you had to take advantage of, because ultimately that diversified revenue allowed the business to be in the position it's in now to take advantage of the big opportunity, which is the powder, and things like the lollies, which you can see there being a lot of export of demand in export markets. So there's just a couple of really quick fire questions which we'll just answer to just wrap things up. Mohammed has asked, does investment include a share in biological assets?
Yeah,
So
so pretty well everything that's on the farm. So at the moment, we lease the farm and to an associated entity. So we've always got the farm there. We can't be kicked off the farm. So it's everything that's the camels, the products, the brand. So all the things that can potentially go up in value are part of what makes up the share portfolio.
yeah, great. And Jenny here has said, Jeff wants to know if your ice cream can be whippy.
Whippy.
Yes,
Well, you can do a soft serve with it. You certainly can. So
great,
yeah,
great.
yeah, definitely. Yep, yep.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, look, Paul, thank you so much for the really detailed summary at the end, the slides and the very thorough responses to all of the questions here. And thank you to everybody here for tuning in and really staying with us until the end and all of your support and interest. We've had hundreds and hundreds of expressions of interest that have come in. I know Paul has had some really interesting conversations with a number of you throughout this process, and we're really, really looking forward to opening up the offer that's opening next Thursday. If you're on the expression of interest list, we will email you with the details the day before. So you needn't worry about receiving anything you need to, and you will be able to review the offer document, which has got the financials and all of the details of this offer on that Thursday. If you're on the expression of interest list, head over to OnMarket and go and make sure that you submit an EOI if you haven't already. Otherwise, I will hand over to Paul to make any final remarks, but I wanted to just thank everybody for today. It's been really good.
Yeah, thanks, Robin, and thanks everyone for being here. I think just taking a moment, I suppose, in times of turmoil, and you think what to invest in, and I think this gives you a chance to invest in real assets, real products, with a great story behind it. You come out and visit us. Come out and see what you're investing in. So anyone that's close by, if you're thinking about it, come out. You can see the team on the weekend and sit down and just see the view that we have to put up with every day of the week. We sort of got a mountain in the range there that stops us getting sea views, but we have to put up with that. So that's part of the scenic rim. But anyway, love to certainly chat to you further down the track. But thank you for taking your time to attend today. Thank you.
Very well said. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon.